had to face the pain of their child, right? And they had to really go through this. They just told me last night, and they're going to speak on the Zoom group because they're out of town. They said, like, we're totally different people than a year ago. They just changed in the inside. The Ahavas Yisrael, they're not seeing bad, they're not looking at people as bad, they're not discounting people, and they're not just seeing the good, not noticing anything bad and just seeing the good. He told me, he said, I would have gone the rest of my life being a judgmental person. He used other words like a bad guy, and I wouldn't have even realized that I'm bad because everything I did was in the name of Hashem, in the name of Torah. I would have looked down at people, and he says, I was forced to change and to realize that my child is good, and that then I realized that so many other people that you can discount as bad, that really deep down they're good, they're beautiful, they're chelek l'kam imal, mamish. It's real. It's real. We say it, but it's real. They're doing this, and they're doing that. So first of all, the rebellious behavior against us is because they only use that to people who are judgmental of them. And you can witness that because they're not going to do anything against you because you are clean, internally clean of being done, judging anybody chiyuvi. And you're just melamed, you're done everybody l'kav zchus. And they know that, they sense that. And a lot of parents, they don't really change. So they'll be like, I have to do this, I have to do that. Or like parents will say like, okay, so I want to tell her, I want to tell him, I want to tell her this, but twisted parenting says, there's no twisted parenting says. So Avi would tell me, doesn't work. It's all about us. It's a real avodah to become pure from judgment, and which is emistika Torah outlook, and that's what the tzaddikim have. There's one more nekuda, like, why is it that the big tzaddikim, Chassidish, Lutheran, doesn't matter, all the big tzaddikim, they always were dan l'kav zchus. They always were non-judgmental. Like you could say, what does it have to do with Yiddishkeit? The teretz is that that's really a very essential piece of Yiddishkeit that we're not trained in. Actually, if you look at Gershon Edelstein, the Shiva of Panovich, every week, most of the weeks in his drasha is about being dan l'kav zchus, about having a favorable eye. Who you are. You're not being dan l'kav zchus, so you don't even see the ra anymore. When you purify yourself, it's not even a struggle. In the beginning, it's like, what? But look at this, but look at that. But the tzaddikim, they're so pure on the inside that they reflect just goodness, and that's kamayim apanim l'apanim kein lev ha'adam la'adam. The way that we look at other people, they sense that and they know that, and that's how, and then they relax around us, and then all of a sudden, their family would say that these girls, that you spent the weekend with are horrible and they're rebellious, and all you see is a bunch of wonderful, sweet kids, and when they know that you see them in that light, they can let go of their external rebellious behavior because there's no reason for it. So the rebellious behavior can go away right away. And then you're left with just a hurt Jew who's dysfunctional because of the pain, who's not able to do all the mitzvahs as much as they internally really want to, even when they say, I don't want it. It's all because of pain. It's all because of their experiences and what happened to them that turned them off. So there's always a reason. And what gets to the reason is this tremendous Ahavas Yisrael. And Ahavas Yisrael it doesn't mean, a lot of people say, obviously, I have Ahavas Yisrael, but not to... Ahavas Yisrael is not on the people it's easy to love, people who are similar to you. It's going all the way to every single Jew, wherever they are. And we see that the more we purify ourselves, and once you have the different classes, right? You don't even look at them as bad. You don't see bad. You see struggling souls, which is the generation that we're in is a generation of struggling souls. And we don't judge them, we don't look down at them, and we don't think we could do their life better. That's a very big nakuda, because judgment means like, I'm looking at you, if I went through what you went through, I could do better. Really? Anybody want to sign up for that? I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants to come down in the next Gilgal as any of your kids. They're suffering. And even if they don't look like they're suffering, it's because they built up this wall around them, and they, You got to make it look like, yeah, I'm fine, I don't need this, and that. We're all lost souls in a very long gullus, and they're suffering even more. And we are all lost in gullus. None of us are on the level that we would be if the Beis Hamikdash was here. We're all lost, and so they're teaching us how to move to a different place. And this parents were saying the same thing as you, because they really worked on themselves. They took advantage of me. They took advantage of the shiurim. They took advantage of the group, and they call me. They're out of town. They call me always privately, a few hours, a few hours a week that I'm for sure an hour a week spending with them on every nikuda, every question, everything. How should we look at it? And now, really, they honestly don't need me anymore. They have new glasses, and they see their child as a beautiful neshama that's hurt, and then they see the friends. Instead of, I don't want this one to be near that one, and this is a bad influence, and this one is terrible. They rose above all of it. They see a bunch of, and what happens is, you're actually, when you are this way, you're dismantling the reason to be scared of those bad friends, because they don't act bad when they're in your vibe and aura and zen of a Havas Yisrael and kindness. When you become a Racham, and a Chanon, and an Erech HaPayim, and a Rav Chesed Ve'emes, you just become somebody that they wouldn't touch, they wouldn't hurt you at all. They'll defend you, they'll take a bullet for you. They'll take a bullet for you. And somebody else who doesn't have this understanding, they're not only judging wrong, but they're causing the kids of all ages to feel so judged, and they're so hurt by that they're actually having a much harder time. So those are like the calls that I get in the beginning, where the parents are looking at it, my kid is a manipulator, my kid is a liar. And that. Once you have your glasses on, and they put it on, it's going to be like, oh. And then their life is actually much calmer, which is the first thing that we try to have here. The house should be calm. Why? Because you don't have a rebellious kid, because there's no rebellion. There's no lahachas. There's no lahachas. I'm doing this against my father. Kids on the street, they say 95% of the stuff they do is to get back my parents. Not when your parents are kind and sweet and nice, and you're left with a child who is many times very sick and very dysfunctional. And if you can carry them and you can rebuild the trust that was ripped out of them through crisis and trauma and abuse and all different real things, then oid ma'at, ve'ein rasha. It's not even appropriate to use the word ve'ein rasha. There's no schlecht here. These are the best kids who go through a car accident. It's just that we don't see it, and we're not sure, and there's no X-ray, and it's difficult to believe, and we're constantly second guessing them. A parent told me, I know, but now I think he's taking advantage. Now I think, leave it alone. Rebuild the trust. You can't fight them anyway. Rebuild the trust and say, sure, no problem. I'm with you. I understand. No problem. And the worst that you're dealing with, if you're able to shine that light into that depth of dysfunction, the deeper you're going to heal them. When they mess up, they're vulnerable. And that's when you really can change them. In Home Sweet Home, the real change happened when the kids did things to get thrown out of the program. And then they were revisiting the thing that happened to them many times throughout the schools. There was one Home Sweet Home kid, he had a niggin for all the schools he got thrown out of. It was 14 schools. The jeans, it was like he had like a whole niggin to say in one breath all 14 yeshivas that he was thrown out of. And here, anybody who came to Home Sweet Home, I knew that they're going to be thrown out because that's how you got in. And then when they would get thrown out, and I would say, okay, let's sit down and talk about it. And say, what do you talk about it? You want me to get my stuff? Say, no. You're struggling here. What can I do to help you ace this? What can I do for you? When they bash up cars, we have the greatest tikkun opportunity when they bash up a car to tell them, I don't care about the car. I just care about you. What? Yeah, I'm just happy that you're safe. That's all that matters to me. You're going into the pnimis, into the kodesh hakadashim, into a very, very, very the depth of, and you're fixing a deep, broken pain that they expect to be rejected. They deserve to be rejected based on their behavior. And you're saying, I'm not going to reject you. I care about you. and let's deal with this, and let's work on this together. And with that, you make a tikkun in who they are. Your kids can walk a little straighter because they have parents who care about them and don't look at their behavior as sinful and evil and bad midos, and they can sense it. So that's why the job is on us. If we would all be Rav Pam and Rav Gershon Edelstein and Lubavitcher Rebbes and all these tzaddikim, you look at the Chazon Ish stories. I mean, I like picking the Chazon Ish because everybody agrees to the Chazon. Everybody, he was the Gadol Hadar of Klal Yisrael. Everybody's, and you hear story after story after story, how they brought him a boy, and he was in a frum yeshiva, and he went to a hangout, a center to hang out with Freya kids, and he was and they told the Chazon Ish, we got to throw him out of yeshiva, and the Chazon Ish said, bring him to me, and he spent time schmoozing with him. And when he left, they all said to him, I don't understand, why didn't you didn't even talk about yeshiva? He said, you can't expect him to give up something until you replace it with something. He's going to continue going to this place, and we have to replace it with something. So I started a relationship with him. He knows he's having a relationship with me. He knew who he was. He knew how chashuv that is. He's going to go back and say, oh, I was by the Chazon Ish. And I told him to come back again in a few days, and we're going to fabring again. And we'll schmooze. And now he has something. Now, you're going to say, how could you compare the fun he's having with boys and girls, not religious, at the center, and what's he replacing it with? The Chazon Ish, how much fun is that? It's chashivus, and it's feeling respected, it's feeling important. And when they have that, you're important to me, they don't need all the other stuff. He said, I'll get him to, I'll take that away, but you can't just pull out a leg from a table. Right now, he needs that. And the Chazon Ish, the Gadol Hadar, is saying he needs to go. And we're not going to tell him you can't go. We're going to give him the feeling of respect that he has something in his life. Oh, I'm going tomorrow to the Chazon Ish. Oh, And he said, he didn't learn Torah with him. That wasn't it. It was giving him chashivas. You're important to me. I'm spending time with you. What's doing in your life? And then automatically, who do you think's going to win? Look in a year from now, and 2 years from now, and 3 years from now. Who's going to win? Of course, they're going to feel better being around us, being around good people, being around functioning people, as long as we're not rejecting them and we're not asking them to give up stuff that they're relying on for their self-worth, that they're relying on for, this is who I am. They have like a persona for the ones who are cool, the ones with fast cars, and the ones with the girls, and the ones with the drugs. They're not just going to stop it from one day to the next. But if you give them, build a leg under that table, eventually they're gonna realize. And a lot of times their bad friends fall away and they have a fight or they move away or they mature. I remember I spoke to a boy and he told me I have no friends. He said, all my friends in the last 3 years, one by one, ended up in Israel, ended up coming from. Each one through a different miracle. A lot of times you look down the line a few years later, this one goes to a rehab, this one goes to a trauma center, this one gets help, this one gets help. They're going to get out of it, Be'ezus Hashem, and they're going to want to heal. But our job is to build that solid legs under this table, under this human that he should feel wanted and liked and accepted and not judged. And when you do that, eventually they're going to want to be like you. She said she would want to be like you. Each one of these girls, you're their hero, you're their superhero, you're their model. So at some point, Be'ezus Hashem, they're going to start saying, okay, I have somebody I look up to that I want to be like. So you have to be their hero. You have to be their superhero. And when you have those glasses on that you have, so that's the real training. The real training is not how to deal with the kid. It's how do you change your glasses? How do you change your vision? How do you look at the same thing that we once thought was bad midos and rebellious and taking advantage and all of that stuff? And how do we purify ourselves that we only see the pure part in them? Not because we're naive and not because we're weak, but because we're intuitive, we're wise, and we're strong. And we have a real emunah in Hashem, a real emunah in them, and a real emunah in what we're doing to save their lives from all of the horrible stuff. Because forget about how they got there. How do you get out of this? I could never get out of this mess that these kids are in. How do you get out of that? How do you climb out of this pit? It's like we put filters on the phones and we keep everything out of the house. And they're mamish, they have access to all of the tumah in the world. And one by one, Be'ezus Hashem, they're all going to turn their back on that. They're all going to want to do mitzvahs, and they're all going to want to be frum. They're all going to, how? I don't know where they get the strength from. but it starts with people like you, that you purify yourself and you look at them. And when you shine the light on them, like tzaddikim do, we see tzaddikim, they're shining. They shine their light. You know, they just look at you and you feel like $1,000,000. You look at, very interesting, if you look at videos of people who go in to speak to tzaddikim, who look at them, they're always smiling. It's always, everything is like, you look at all the, every time I went to Steinman, I'm smiling. Why am I smiling? We weren't joking around with each other. There's just an aura of like, there's the Yiras HaKavod, of course, but it's like, you know, and they always say a nice thing, and there's an aura around holy people. So the trick of TP is we're not doing it because Avi's going to kill me, and we're not doing a method, and we're not doing a trick, and it's nothing twisted. It's purifying ourselves to realize, yeah, that not only I love this person and I don't judge them, I could even go so far. It's like, how far can you go? How far can you stretch yourself to see toiv in people who look like they're not toiv? And you guys are amazing. You're all doing that. You're purifying yourself, peeling away layers of the judgment that we're born with and that gets surrounded as we get older. We just have judgment, and we think we're right and they're wrong, and how could it be, and why aren't they? We're peeling away all of those layers and becoming elevated to just see good and to make people feel good. And ultimately, that's what gravitates them towards us. And ultimately, that's what allows them to heal, because that's the first step. When they just can relax, I don't got to pretend, I don't have to live a double life, I don't have to lie, I don't have to worry. I know that you always got my back and you're always there for me. And then there's a certain calm that they can have. And then they get older and they mature and it comes together. Be'ezras Hashem, of course. And of course, under Das Torah.